But effectively, what the corner mode gives you is the ability to go at full pelt when you're going in a straight line, and then slow down on corners. So let's see if we can invent something quickly. So effectively, we've got a 2-axis system. I'll do 1,2. I think I've got the servos on, have I? No, it's not activated yet. So let's do a quick servo. Axis 1 was on. If you're doing virtual axes, by the way, it's always advisable to give it some reasonable number of units. So if you leave the units at 1, you end up with really coarse movements with effectively an integer value on all the axes. But if you give the axis some units, say 100 or 1,000, it does mean that all of your distances and speeds have the ability to have decimal places, which otherwise they wouldn't. Okay, that should be enough to set it up, I think. So if we set a speed to some value, and then we would just do a move. I'll do a move 100, 0. So that's doing a move along the x-axis, and then we're going to do a move 0,100. So then going to go up the y-axis effectively. And we'll start off at 0 position. And we'll trigger the scope so we can see what's going on. Okay, so these two moves will just run at the speed we set here. And as I'm sure you've gathered from earlier on, this is the speed along the vector. So if we open up the scope again and we'll look at VP speed, we'll look at the 2-axis positions, and we'll look at the VP speed on the first axis. We'll turn that one off. Okay, trigger the scope and see what happens. Okay, so you can see there that the x-axis goes up to its position of 100, and then the y-axis goes up. We've got this dip in speed here because the merge is not on. So that's the other thing we need to do, is we just need to put merge on. Like that. Okay, so let's just run that again. So there we go. That's the 2 axes moving like that. Might be more interesting to look at the speeds of these axes rather than the positions. So just do that again. It's quite possible that I've got this VP mode still in play. It'll remember, that's the problem. So let's make sure that's 0. That's better, yeah. If you're playing around with the controller, you've got to always remember that. If you run some demo with a certain set of parameters in the axis, it will remember it. So it had remembered I had a different VP mode in there, which, as I said, is only in a single axis mode, the VP mode 3 or whatever it was. Okay, so there we are. So the green line here is our main profile speed, which is continuous. It's running at 100 per second, because that's what we've got set here. And our 2 axes, the red one is now running at It says 120 there for some reason, and then the other axis then runs 120. But when this one starts, the y-axis starts, the x-axis suddenly stops. So at the point where it goes around the corner, we're going around a 90-degree corner here. It goes around at full speed on the vector, which means that the x and y axes come to a sudden stop and a sudden start, and that is not really desirable. So what we can do about that is to set something called corner mode, and to do that, actually, we need to also use the move SP type moves, because it's specific to these SPs, which also means I have to set a force speed as well. And end move speed. I'm just setting them to speed so that it will just run the same. So just to show it is, I'll just run that again. So it's a different type of move now using the SP speed control move, but we still have the same effect. So what I'm going to do is set corner mode. Equal to, I think it's 2. Just check that. Yeah, 1 gives us automatic corner speed control. Yeah, so the value is 2. It sets bit 1. So I can either do corner mode .1, which is bit 1 equals 1, or I can set it to the value 2. So having done that, the next thing I need to do, I need to tell it what angle of change of vector I need it to slow down at. So I can do that with two values. There's something called the stop angle. So I'm going to say when it gets to 90 degrees, we're going to stop. So I do this in radians, so it's times pi divided by 180. And I'm going to tell it to decelerate if it gets beyond about 45 degrees. So having set that corner mode up and defined the two angles, the angle where it will actually come to a complete stop and the angle where it will decelerate, if I run it now, what I'm hoping to see is that it will dip. And you can see now that the velocity profile has actually gone down to 0 because I told it to stop at 90 degrees. And you can see that although it's a little bit steppy in the scope display here, the speeds of the two axes have decelerated down and accelerated up rather than just going bang from one direction to the other. If I change the angle a little so that it's not 90 degrees, so say I set that to 50, 100, so now we're going off at a different angle instead of a 90-degree change. We should see it dip but not go completely to 0. Okay, the noisy bit here is because of the resolution of the speed. If I set this is where the units makes a difference. If I set the units higher, we should see a little bit less of that. Okay, interestingly, yes, that's right. It's basically now that we're running at an angle, this is going along in the, which one's this? This is the y direction. It's going at that speed, and the x direction is going at a slower speed. So that's very useful in machines, especially XY cutters and XY plotters, where you need to effectively go at quite high speeds when you're just going in a straight line. But if you get to the point where you need to traverse a change in angle, then you can make it automatically reduce the speed as it approaches that and slow down. So it's quite useful. Okay.